Hi, welcome back to the next exciting installment of Z-fari, the video book. Today we're going to read the first part of chapter 12. So if you're ready, kick back. Here we go. Bibi had had just about enough of the Donaldsons and didn't want to talk about anything they had had to say until he took a long shower and scrubbed the stink of them off of himself. He washed the clothes he had worn when Junior took his trophy 3 times, using heavy-duty detergent and lots of bleach each time. So when he got to work on the platform the next day and Ike told him that they needed to talk, Bibi felt himself sinking into a pit of shit again. A safari? Bibi asked Ike. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Rick said that he wanted to take Junior, a couple of the goons, and a chef out to Zealand for a weekend hunting, Ike explained. You and I would find the spot, they'd fly in one of Daddy's helicopters, and we'd be the guides. And he would pay each of us $20,000 cash. Oh, so we'll be the great white hunters, and we'll be the native bearers too. A zombie shoot. Bibi was even more disgusted at this point. You and I will point their big-ass elephant guns for them in an ambush, load them for those 2 losers, and then go back into the bush driving the zombies toward the choke point, swinging sticks and flags to flush them out. Rick and Junior shoot the zombies in the barrel, take a trophy or 2, and then have a lovely dinner with a nice bottle of wine. And we'd get to be the Donaldson zombies too. Do I have that about right? Won't be as bad as that, Bibi, Ike said calmly, trying to soothe Bibi's raw nerves. Before you started on the platform, I covered for Sally one night, and when I was about to go home after my shift, Ned invited me to go for a ride in that coal-rolling truck he put together. I didn't have anything better to do, so I went along. He drove like a crazy man, but rather than bouncing around the scenery, he tore out west on 119th Street. About 2 miles later, came to a little town named Peck. There were some unoccupied houses, a vacant gas station, a deserted post office, and an abandoned burger joint, all bordered by farmland on 3 sides and railroad tracks on the west. Probably about 6 or 8 blocks of town. If you keep going west about 10 miles farther on, you get to Viola, another little wide spot in the road to Zealand. Hey, we could use the old post office in Peck. We could camp out in the building and arrange our weapons on the roof, like using a stand to hunt deer. Bibi thought for a moment. The idea of pocketing $20K for 2 days' work running around his brain. Well, he said, I suppose that using the post office building as a redoubt and the roof as our blind will help keep us from becoming some undead snack. Ike knew that he had Bibi then. Let's go check it out this weekend, he said with a smile. Bibi nodded, still frowning. Corporal D'Aubigny continued the recruits' training. Yesterday's flamethrower practice with the mannequins actually went pretty well. Only 1 trooper fainted, Lawrence, and 3 threw up when the smell of the burning bodies blew back into the troopers' faces, Jingashi, Walid, and Cortez. Maybe she should have been concerned when the 3 kids sniffed the burning skin, flesh, and fat on the breeze and whispered to each other. The corporal could have sworn that Kate had giggled behind her hand. But today they would learn axes. The corporal had collected throwing axes and felling axes in a variety of sizes and weights for Marie Farrell at the armory. Marie had a few specialized axe-like weapons available, Japanese onos, Chinese dagger axes, halberds, even a few hurlbats. But D'Aubigny wanted to keep the training relatively simple. Once the recruits had mastered the axes she brought to training, they could see the armorer to satisfy their personal preferences. Since Cedric Jones had gained some experience in eskrima during his Arnis training, he was already proficient in throwing an axe, and he picked up the longer and heavier European felling axe quickly. Even though it was a very different skill from the javelin, Walid mastered the throwing axe quickly. Greg Cortez asked if there were any machetes he could use. Corporal D'Aubigny had anticipated that at least one of her troopers would be interested in using that tool. Machetes were common on every inhabited continent but Australia. The rest of the recruits were rank novices. Again, the recruits began on department store dummies until the 2 techniques Corporal D'Aubigny taught them became effective and smooth. Number 1, chopping off the head at the neck, and 2, sinking the blade of the axe or hatchet, or machete for that matter, into the area of the skull where the sagittal and coronal sutures joining the parietal and frontal bones come together. This latter skill took dedicated and exacting practice. As a teaching aid, the corporal tasked a subordinate to mark that juncture with a spot in red Sharpie on 100 dummy heads. Once a recruit was able to drive the edge of his or her weapon into the skull at this mark 5 times out of 10, The trainee got to attempt the same technique with the mannequins. To pass the axe training, each recruit had to completely separate a mannequin's head from its body, and then sink the axe of his or her choice into the top of the mannequin's skull as it lay on the ground. Grace O'Malley had to attempt the decapitation 3 times, but when it came to sinking her axe in a skull, she got it on her first try. The rest of the recruits mastered these skills by the end of the day's weapons training by repeating them again and again and again. Earhart and Reed continued north on their inspections after their day off, starting at the zoo at dawn, and then on to Two Rivers, and then Columbine Lane, and then Lake Kansas, and then interchanged south, and then interchanged north, and then Woodrow, and then Hellers Park, and finally Hydraulic Avenue, as the sun began to set. That was much more than enough for one day, but at least she could sleep at home again tonight and order a pizza. Emily found that working with Trooper Reed was easy. He was a terrific assistant, almost frighteningly efficient, had a wonderfully twisted sense of humor, was eager to share his ideas, and when he walked out of her office, Emily had noticed that his ass looked nice in his patrol uniform trousers. She laughed at herself. That was completely inappropriate. There could be no fraternizing between officers and troopers. Nope. None. No matter how nice and well-muscled his ass was. She wondered if he had noticed her ass. She ran and worked out at the gym. Did he use the patrol gym? He certainly did something to stay in shape. Wait a minute. Maybe he was gay. That would suck, she thought, and then dissolved into a fit of laughter. Where did he live? Maybe she could run past his place. Just by chance, you know. You are so bad, she thought to herself. And then another thought, just a tiny one, just a glimpse of a thought of her and Britt flew through her imagination. She wanted to whisper his name, being bad together. Enough of this, Emily decided. She needed some girl time. She grabbed her cell and called Julie. Would she like to go out later and have a drink or two? Julie said, sure, meet me at Dutfield's. Do you know it? Emily laughed and told Julie that she had had to bail a few troopers out of jail who had gotten into fights at Dutfield's, but they had a great stock of beer and cider. How about 9? That gave Emily a chance to shave her legs, shower, make a little snack, wearing nothing but a towel around her hair, and pick out a cute dress and shoes. She got to Dutfield's a few minutes past 9 and almost immediately found Julie. Julie had found some songs by Queen on the jukebox, and she was standing next to the big neon Wurlitzer, belting out harmonies to Freddie Mercury's leads. The people in the bar were awestruck, and every time a song ended, someone would put another quarter in the jukebox, buy Julie another Swedish cider, and let Julie pick the next song. Emily stood and watched while Julie sang a goosebump-inducing contralto to the Night at the Opera album. I'm in Love with My Car, Bohemian Rhapsody, and God Save the Queen. When the final notes of Queen's version of Queen faded away, Emily walked up to Julie and slid her arm around Julie's waist to steer her to a table. On the way to the table, Julie leaned down and kissed a cute little redhead as she walked by. The redhead's date, a big strapping farm boy, jumped up and asked Julie what the hell she thought she was doing. Julie saw an opening and walked over and kissed the farm boy too. The redhead didn't fail to notice the smooch, jumped up, called Julie and her entire family a number of impolite names, and tried to grab Julie's hair and rip it out by the roots. Julie saw this coming and threw a short, sharp jab that met the redhead directly in the nose. The girl crumpled to the floor. Seeing his date dropping like an unconscious rock, the big old farm boy lurched toward Julie, swinging wildly with his right fist, his attempted haymaker missing by 6 inches as Julie ducked. As she came up, she threw a nasty little punch that hit the big boy in his diaphragm, knocked the wind out of him, and he went down to join his date on the floor of the bar. Emily hadn't become a sergeant without the ability to think quickly. She steered her tipsy, victorious friend toward the bar's door and out into the street. On the way out, Julie serenaded the patrons of the bar with Celeste Aida, Radame's opening aria in Verdi's Aida, although Julie sang it in her lush contralto, a little higher than Radame's tenor. Emily took Julie home for coffee. The two women talked until 1 in the morning. After Emily's strong black coffee sobered Julie up, Julie asked for just a little pour of Jameson in her coffee. Both women teetered on the edge of hilarious sobriety for quite a while before they fell off entirely. Throughout the evening, Emily had mentioned Trooper Reed once too often in their conversation, and Julie was unrelenting in her questions about him. At first, Emily tried to change the subject, but Julie saw Emily's clumsy attempt to hide her attraction to the man and homed in like a heat-seeking missile on the subject of Britt Reed for the rest of the evening. Emily had been impressed, completely professionally, she had convinced herself, with Britt's diverse skill set, sharp wit, and great discipline. As his superior, she liked his diligence, creativity, and penetrating intellect. Penetrating intellect? Julie laughed so hard that she fell off her chair onto the kitchen floor. The women's conversation degenerated after that.